Welcome to Relentless Business Leader Podcast, a podcast dedicated to learning the relentless mindset of high-level entrepreneurs from around the world. A relentless business leader is not born. A relentless business leader is forged through difficult times. Now here's about today's Business Leader Podcast guest.
Jeffrey Hayzlett is a primetime television host of C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and Executive Perspectives on C-Suite TV, and business podcast host of All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on C-Suite Radio. He is a global business celebrity, speaker, best-selling author, and chairman of C-Suite Network, home of the world's most trusted network of C-Suite leaders. Hayzlett is a well-traveled public speaker, former Fortune 100 CMO, and author of 4 best-selling business books: The Hero Factor, Think Big, Act Bigger, The Rewards of Being Relentless, Running the Gauntlet, and The Mirror Test. Hayzlett is one of the most compelling figures in business today and an inductee into the NSA's Speaker Hall of Fame. As a leading business expert, Hayzlett is frequently cited in Forbes, Success, Mashable, Marketing Week, and Chief Executive, among many others. He shares his executive insight and commentary on television networks like Bloomberg, MSNBC, Fox Business, and C-Suite TV. Hayzlett is a former Bloomberg contributing editor and primetime host, and has appeared as a guest celebrity judge on NBC's Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump for 3 seasons. He is a turnaround architect of the highest order, a maverick marketer and C-suite executive who delivers scalable campaigns, embraces traditional modes of customer engagement, and possesses a remarkable cachet of mentorship, corporate governance, and brand building.
Welcome to Relentless Business Leader Podcast. I got a man that has really done amazing things for the business community. His name is Jeffrey Hayzlett. Jeffrey Hayzlett, I just want to thank you for being here.
Well, what a pleasure, man. I've always liked to be on any show that's relentless, and we all know of your history and how relentless that you are. So I appreciate it.
You know, it's my honor, and honestly, let's face it, I give credit where the credit is due. That word relentless came from you.
Well,
the black hat came from you. So thank you for being an example of what relentless is.
Well, thank you. I'm not wearing my hat, but I am in Dallas today, so I'm glad to be able to come to you right here live from Dallas.
Live from Dallas, people. Okay, well, Jeff, we're here to talk about something I'm learning. And that is how you went from a Fortune 100 company boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
And how you use storytelling to take you from that boardroom to the stage. So tell me a little bit about how storytelling impacted your career.
Well, I would say that the storytelling came even before the Fortune 100. That gave me a part of the process or the pathway, the journey that led to that. You know, when I was a young kid, I used to listen to speakers, watch speakers all the time, entertainers as well, because the other one I would tell you is preachers. I'd watch a lot of preachers too, because some of those pastors and preachers were some of the best speakers that I'd ever met in my entire life. And so I gained inspiration and education and motivation from each of those people that I follow, sometimes even monetization in terms of learning. You know, my dad was in the military. My mother was a bookkeeper when I was growing up. And But I got involved, going to different kinds of events, different places. And as I was growing up, I learned from these people, how to tell great stories. I used to listen to a guy named Jerry Clower. If you remember Jerry Clower, he was called the Mouth of the South. He was a comedian and storyteller. And of course, he's in the Grand Ole Opry. And I used to listen to his records way back then. And then records of comedians and records of lots of different people. And then I started following, and reading people like Og Mandino, Norman Vincent Peale, Tommy Hopkins, Brian Tracy, who became a really good friend of mine, Zig Ziglar, who became a friend of mine, and all these people that, when I was very young, they were at the pinnacle of their career and got a chance to meet them. And I got involved very early in what was called the National Speakers Association, and went to a lot of their conventions, started going to those conventions, and then learning from some of the greatest people up on stage, the running of the business, the value of being a speaker. And of course, what you do by seeing and watching so many great speakers, you start to, pick up this, what's this, you do shouts out, you do callbacks, all the different, techniques that these speakers will do. And so that gave you the ability to use persuasion, and I was also back in college in government and international affairs. And so persuasion was a big tool that, that you use in government to get to get your bill across, get your, and I went into politics for a while and then watched some of the greatest orators in the world, like Senator Robert Byrd from West Virginia, Senator Jim Abrams from South Dakota, one of the most persuasive men I've ever met, and others had the ability. George McGovern was my boss, at one time, and Senator McGovern. So all of those people, aided in that education, and from the education you have to practice. And so I practiced a great deal. And as I practice, I learn. I'm still learning. I'm still changing. I'm still altering the way in which I do those messages. And that's how I started using it. And so the communication skills are great, are really needed typically when you're in the C-suite. And so there's just something I've just honed over the years.
Yeah, that is really more than I thought. I thought you went from boardroom to stage, but in all reality, storytelling has been your go-to since the beginning.
Yeah. So, and even telling, to the point of I love jokes. I love stories that have meaning, stories that are real. I tell an opening story every speech I give, and it happened to me in real life. And that's when I met my wife's great grandmother. My wife is this tiny, petite, 5'1", 110 pounds, and I'm 6'3", 250 some pounds. And I remember the first time I met her great grandmother, who she's maybe 4'11", maybe weighed 90 pounds.
Oh my God.
And she's just this little tiny thing. And she looked up at Tammy. And then she looked way up at me, looked at Tammy, looked way up at me, looked at Tammy, way up at me, and then turned back to Tammy and said, "Isn't he bigger than necessary?" And that's, but that's a real story that happened. And now maybe I, tell it a little bit differently, but, looked up at me. I set it up, looked down at Tammy, looked up at Tammy, looked up at me, turned back to Tammy. You hone those things over time. When, all she did was look up at me, and she turned to Tammy and said, "Isn't he bigger than necessary?" But the buildup of that story is much better. And so it's still the core of what was said. You just, elaborate, you paint the picture of what people, see. And great persuaders, great, orators know how to paint the picture really well and know how to do certain things, and I was watching a reel the other day of Frank Lutz. Frank Lutz is I've known him for years. And you see him on Fox a lot. He's a pollster, and he says there's certain ways to make sure that let me leave this. If I leave you one thing, let it be this. It's you're setting it up. Let me paint the picture of what you're about to see. These are little things that you do that they just come with experience. Come with experience.
Yeah, I'm just learning how to, when you just say painting a picture, you brush to your words.
Yeah.
It's how you're using your words. And let's face it, everybody out there are visually oriented. So if you can get your words match up to paint a picture, you use the word persuasive, but it's supposed to influencer. You influence people.
Yeah.
And by doing that, as you know, I'm writing a book called Relentless, Turning Pain into Purpose. I'm just slowly learning how important it is to use those pictures words.
Well, it is. Because I think we're visual people, so we see things. History, before written word was handed down by oral history. And that's how people, were able to tell the story. Native Americans are great storytellers because they didn't have a written language until the Seminole Indians finally had invented one. But they painted pictures. This Lakota or Sioux, did pictographs, and the pictographs, would on a hide would tell by year the one thing that happened during that year, and they can go back hundreds of years to be able to tell you, what that story was. But yet the oral history of passing down the story to this generation, to this generation, to this generation, it was told over and over, and we still do that, but not to the extent that we used to. And now it's much more visual. Now we have things like television and podcasts. We had motion pictures for a while. We had, before they invented the talkies with the silence, so we've now have 100, 150, 200 years of this new medium. And so that's also a way to tell the story. And of course, here we are sitting on a podcast that's also a video. That video becomes a TV. That TV becomes, a way to be able to tell the story in a much different way. So, it's just part of what you learn. And you want to, if you're good in business, you use all these mediums to your benefit. I use video messages all the time. I send them out just like I send an email. And the reason for that is that I think it's much better to get that, the voice, the inflection, the look, the feel. You see me, and it's not just the written word, it's the visual word as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm still a struggle, obviously, turning my words into pictures. Because really that's what storytelling is. You're turning your words into something somebody can see in their mind. And that's very, very influencing. It really makes people see, not just hear.
Well, and the vessel, you're a vessel for it. And I know that because of the stroke, the vessels may be a little cracked here or there, but you were cracked beforehand. I just want to say that. Yeah. But you know what I mean? And you just have to take the time, I think to receive the message, to understand that, they all come in, they all come in different shapes and sizes, right? And methods to be able to deliver. The key is you got to be, and the other thing I think you've got to have in a great storyteller is you got to have a great listener. Somebody's got to listen. You know what I mean? You got to have somebody to tell the story to, you know? Although I think we're pretty good at telling them to ourselves. I mean, I practice a great deal, and I don't always do it orally. You know what I mean? A lot of times I go through and give a speech in my head. You know, I'll lay in bed at early in the morning, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and be thinking about the keynote that I'm going to give and what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it. And I go through the steps of all that. I think great speakers do that. I think great storytellers do that. You don't become a great storyteller by just having good copy. You've got to be able to practice it. And I'm constantly changing it. I'm constantly, altering it. Many of the people that have been around my speeches for years sometimes see a different one every time because it's different every time. Sometimes Aaron, I even forget. I'm in a story and I forget a line or two, and because I get excited and I move ahead, but then realize as I'm telling the story over here, I've got to go back and get that piece of it and bring it forward, or the story doesn't make sense. You just get out of sequence sometimes, and it's like, oh crap, I'm gonna give the punchline, but I forgot this piece, so I've got to go back and all that's going on in your head, and it hurts, sometimes when you do it, but we all, because we all make mistakes on that stuff.
Well, when I met you years ago, your influence on my life as a spiritual life was life changing. And it was influence. You had an impact on my life. And one thing C-Suite Network has, and I have never seen it on any other networking platform, authenticity and being genuine.
Yeah.
Being authentic.
You just be yourself, and hopefully that's pretty doggone good, right? If you're, I think it's easier to be yourself. It's better to practice yourself than it's hard enough being yourself. Why would you want to be somebody different, So, but there are people who don't practice that, don't believe that, aren't like that, and we just have to lead the way. It's what good people are supposed to do, I think.
Yeah, I would like to touch a little bit on that, because being authentic, you would think it'd be easy. You think it'd be easy being yourself. Well, we have so much influence on us. Social media, how to be, how to speak, how to say things, whatever, how to act. It's tends across not genuine.
Well, but if you're comfortable, it's like the other day I've been invited to a thing in Washington D.C., big muckety muck thing, and I said I'll come, but I want to be able to wear jeans and just a sport coat and my boots. Is that okay to come to this reception like that? And they said, come any way you want. I said, great, and I'll come. So I'll fly to Washington D.C. to attend this pretty high reception. And business people, I just don't want to change, Aaron. I don't want to have to pretend I'm something else. So therefore, I'd rather be what I am. And I think I think more of us should do it like that. I'm not on a crusade or anything. I'm just being me.
Yeah, I think that's probably so powerful. You have to listen. Just be who you are.
Yeah.
Jeff is who he is. I am who I am. And it's really, you will promote and do more business being authentic than you will be funny, right?
And I also think you have less hassle. I mean, obviously, Aaron, you're affected by the stroke. Everybody knows that. And you can wallow, you and I've talked about this. You can wallow in it. Why did this happen to me? It happened to me. I can't speak the way I want to speak. I have all this stuff in my head, but I can't get it out this way. But just be yourself. And that comes through and that's the new, that becomes the new normal. That becomes the who you are. Well, okay, great. And let's don't mess around. I mean, you and I kid about it sometimes. We give each other a hard time. That's just being brothers. That's just being men doing what we do. And I think that's the more of that we do, I think the less issues it causes for other people, and it helps pave the way for people to live a better life, to have a better relationship. It's no different than the other day. I was getting my hair cut on Saturday, and I was in there, and it was a black woman who was cutting my hair, African-American woman, and we were just talking, and in walks a guy who says, "Hey, you do white people's hair." Now, and I said to her, "What did he just say?"
I know Billy, yes.
Yeah. Well, and the woman said, "Well, he's been coming to me for 10 years and he said that for 10 years." So they knew each other. And I said, "Well, what a great way to have a relationship where you can say something like that, give each other a hard time and love each other in a different way, and serve each other in a different way." And I just thought that was funny. So when I paid and left, I turned to him and said, "Hey, white boy up," and that was his turn to go get his hair cut. So it's better to be authentic, it's better to be direct, and have a little and relax on life a little bit.
Yeah, I can relax on life a little bit. What a great thing to say. I mean, that's what we're all seeking, is to relax and enjoy life. So
yeah, it's like people say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I just want to be a good grandfather," right?
Right. Now you live in North Dakota, correct?
South Dakota.
South Dakota. Sorry.
Yeah, nobody wants to live in North Dakota.
Sorry, I forgot English.
It's a lot warmer in South Dakota than North Dakota. That's why we call it South Dakota. Yeah.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just joking. It's they're both cold. They're both cold. They're both hot. It's both.
Yeah, it's kind of, with me, you can do that because I'm brand new to it. I believe everything you say pretty much.
Yeah.
But, I think if you were to give some advice, what are your top 2 authors? Now, if I want to learn to be a better storyteller, give me your 2 top people I should look at, I should follow.
Well, I think I love the greatest. I love the people who did it. I think you go look at people like Zig Ziglar. I think you go look at people like Og Mandino. And, and then, there's men and women who follow them that have done really great as well. But you just start looking and searching for some of the greatest speakers, and you start watching. And a lot of times you're going to see people like John F. Kennedy, and you'll see Ronald Reagan, I think Ronald Reagan was one of the best storytellers there was. I mean, he could tell a good joke, and then he used to hang around with Tip O'Neill, and I think Tip O'Neill was a great speaker as well, a former House of Representatives member from Boston, and Speaker of the House for, I don't know, long time. And yet here was, Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan were on the opposing sides, but yet they were both Irish, get together, have a drink, and at the same time they would discuss politics, and it made the world a better place. So I love to watch people like that, and I love to watch people with great integrity, and I think both of those men had unbelievable integrity. You might not like their politics, but you sure like their personal, the personal side of who they were.
Yeah, that makes me think about something that's kind of what you say. But it's not my job to convince you I'm right.
Yeah.
You have to repeat it.
Yeah.
My job is to learn why you think that way.
Yeah.
Repeat that.
Yeah, I always say that it's not my job to convince you you're right or you're wrong. It's just my job to understand who you are. And why you're coming from where you are. So so when I get into conversations with people, I don't try to convince them that you're stupid or that you're smart. You are who you are. And so when you take a position on an issue, you believe it. But why? and where are you coming from, and where, I'd rather know those things rather than saying you're from a red state or from a blue state, you're conservative or you're liberal. I don't like tags. I don't like names like that on people. I just like to know that you're Aaron, and this is what you believe in. And I might think you're nuts, but it's okay. But my job isn't to convince you. My job is just to better understand you. Then I can serve you better, and I can serve the world a lot better by doing it that way.
Boy, is that true, because your purpose is to understand.
Yeah.
Not judge.
Right. Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a last few minutes to mention C-Suite. What is C-Suite Network?
Well, C-Suite Network is a trusted network of C-Suite executives where we come together and we use content, we use communities, we use the marketplace to be able to, get to a better place in our businesses and for our professional careers. And that's what C-Suite's all about. We've got podcasts, television shows, books. We've got communities of people and peer-to-peer communities, and then we also have a marketplace where people can come and sell and do business with each other. And that's what it's all about. So it's a trusted network where you got to be a vice president or higher to belong.
Yeah, I never told you this, but I have visited a few other network organizations. They suck, honestly. I'm no fan, but they're not very good, and it's almost a waste of time. But C-Suite Network, I am telling you, people, if you want to prove your business, improve the way you talk about business, improve anything, join the C-Suite Network. How do you do that, Jeff? How do I join?
Just go to csuitenetwork.com, c-suitenetwork.com, and just see one of the many events that we have. We have over 600 events, whether you come online or you show up in person. We do in-person events in New York and Las Vegas and Phoenix and Dallas and Fort Worth and many other cities. So we'd love to have you come anytime you're available.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, awesome events. But you and Tyler and your entourage are creating a total marketing platform. I can't wait to get into that. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your online cloud presence.
Well, we have a cloud marketing program where we help people. In terms of, there's 3 ways you can do it yourself. We can do it with you, or we can do it for you. But we give you the tools, and we give you the roadmap to be able to go out and create greater reach, discovery, and conversion with your business, no matter what you're selling, no matter what you're pushing. And so we do that as best as possible. So we've got an entire marketplace of all kinds of service providers, as well as products and tools that you can use.
So now, if you want to get involved, it's csuitenetwork.com, correct?
That's it, c-suitenetwork.com. And anything C-Suite, you can go find it. C-Suite loans, C-Suite, marketplace, C-Suite books. We're even going to do C-Suite cologne, the smell of success.
Yeah, okay. Well, Jeff, my time goes by too quick. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. What a pleasure, and always a pleasure to be with you, Aaron. And I look forward to seeing you at one of our events. I know I see you a lot at Celebrates, or maybe even Scotch Sunday. Scotch Sunday is a great time where we get together, drink a little brown liquid from time to time, and usually talk a lot about politics and the economy, and occasionally, religion.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And please tell Trish I said hi.
Oh, you bet. She'll appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Bye, bro. All right. That's